The rain hammered the windshield of Daniel Cole's rusted pickup truck. The night his entire world changed, though he had no idea it was happening at all. He was just a mechanic trying to get home before his daughter's bedtime, his hands still stained with engine grease, his heart heavier than the toolbox rattling in the truck bed. He didn't know that 3 miles away, behind the tinted windows of a black limousine parked outside his shop, a 12-year-old girl in a wheelchair was watching him through the rain-streaked glass, and that her father, one of the wealthiest men in the country, was watching too. If this story moves you, please hit like, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from, share it with someone who still believes in second chances, and subscribe to Kindness so you never miss a story like this one. Daniel had not always been alone. 3 years earlier, his wife Sarah had died in a car accident on an icy road, leaving him with a 6-year-old daughter named Lily and a mountain of grief he still hadn't finished climbing. He worked 6 days a week at Miller's Auto Repair, a small shop on the edge of town, and spent every spare dollar on Lily's asthma medication and school supplies. He wasn't rich, he wasn't important, but he was kind. And in a town that had grown used to looking away from strangers, Daniel Cole never did. That particular evening, a limousine had broken down outside his shop, just as he was closing up. The driver, panicked and soaked, begged him to take a look, explaining that his passenger was Richard Hale, the reclusive tech billionaire whose face rarely appeared in public anymore. Not since his daughter Emma's accident, 2 years prior, had left her unable to walk and largely unable to trust anyone outside her father's inner circle. Richard had grown suspicious of the world, hiring guards, doctors, and specialists who charged fortunes but delivered little comfort. Emma had stopped smiling, she had stopped hoping, and on this rainy night, stranded on the side of a road she didn't choose to be on, she watched a stranger walk out into the storm without hesitation. Daniel didn't know who was inside the car. He only saw a vehicle in trouble and offered to help, the same way he would have helped anyone. He worked under the hood in the pouring rain, refusing an umbrella, refusing payment in advance, just quietly doing what needed to be done, while water dripped from his jaw. Through the window, Emma watched his hands move with patience and care, the same patience she hadn't felt from anyone since her accident, not even from doctors paid $1,000 an hour. There was something about the way he worked, unhurried and unbothered by the rain soaking through his jacket, that made her lean closer to the glass. When the engine finally sputtered back to life, Daniel refused payment, saying only that everyone deserved a hand when their car broke down on a night like this. Richard, stunned by the gesture, insisted on knowing his name. Daniel gave it reluctantly, embarrassed by the attention, and hurried back inside to close up his shop and drive home to Lily, who was waiting with a peanut butter sandwich and a coloring book she'd saved for him. He had no idea that Emma had asked her father, in a voice barely above a whisper, to find out more about the man who fixed cars in the rain, and asked for nothing in return. Over the following weeks, Richard quietly investigated Daniel's life, not out of suspicion, but out of a curiosity he hadn't felt in years. He learned that Daniel spent his Saturday mornings volunteering at a shelter for stray animals, that he taught a free mechanics class for teenagers who couldn't afford one, and that he had once given his own coat to a homeless man outside the grocery store in the dead of winter, walking home in nothing but a t-shirt. None of it had ever been posted online or bragged about. Daniel simply lived that way because it was the only way he knew how to live, a quiet code passed down from his own father, who had taught him that character was what you did when no one was watching. Richard arranged, without Daniel's knowledge, for Emma to visit the auto shop under the guise of a school project about local small businesses. Daniel welcomed her warmly, kneeling beside her wheelchair to show her how an engine worked, letting her hold a wrench, even though her hands trembled with the effort. He spoke to her not with pity, but with genuine interest, asking what she loved, what she dreamed about, treating her like a curious 12-year-old rather than a fragile object to be managed. For the first time in 2 years, Emma laughed, a real unguarded laugh that startled even her own bodyguard standing at a distance. Daniel had no idea that Emma had been diagnosed with a rare neurological condition that specialists across the world had called untreatable, or that her father had spent millions chasing a cure that never came. He simply kept visiting with her when she asked to come back, teaching her patience, showing her that broken things could still be fixed if you cared enough to try, and slowly, without any grand gesture, giving her back a piece of hope she thought she'd lost forever. That hope, doctors would later say, was what gave her the will to push through months of grueling physical therapy she had previously refused. 6 months later, gripping the frame of a walker with white knuckles and Daniel standing beside her instead of any hired specialist, Emma took 4 unsteady steps across the shop floor, and Richard Hale, a man who rarely showed emotion in front of others, wept openly for the first time since his daughter's accident. Daniel never asked for money, never asked for recognition, and was stunned when Richard later offered to pay off his debts and set up a trust for Lily's future. He almost refused it, insisting he hadn't done anything special, until Richard told him quietly that the greatest miracles rarely come from grand gestures, but from ordinary people who choose kindness when they think no one is watching. Emma still visits the shop every week, walking now instead of rolling, and Lily calls her big sister. If this story touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, and share it with someone who needs a reminder that kindness never goes unnoticed. And don't forget to subscribe to Kindness for more stories like this one.